and I want to really welcome every single woman who is watching this right now, whether you're watching this right now or you're watching this later, wherever you are as you're listening to this. I deeply welcome you, especially any of the women who are involved with the Nakedly Unashamed 28-day challenge at the moment. So my name is Sonja Maria Devi, and I'm so happy to be able to have this space to share with you the 4 keys to living shame-free. So a little bit about me. I am a feminine empowerment coach, and I'm also a priestess and a healer and a teacher and a writer. And really what I'm completely passionate about is empowering women to connect to the power and love and beauty inside themselves so that they can shine that out into the world without shame. So I'm really committed to myself living without shame and also to inspiring other women. And I really want to share what's worked for me. That's my intention for this webinar today, to share what's helped me to live shame-free. And I would love to just invite you to imagine that there's women all together, all linking up right now. And we're all being joined in this beautiful golden bubble of light as we dive into this subject of shame, which is such a deep and strong one that so many women really struggle with. So just imagining that there's a beautiful thread of light connecting us all. And I encourage you to take a couple of nice deep breaths into your belly, into your lower belly, and you might want to place your hands there at your lower belly and take a nice deep breath in. And just let it out with a sigh. And another one. And just because that feels so good, let's do another one. So I feel like really we're at a very special time right now in collectively for women, in which what we're really being, the restrictions which are upon us are actually mainly self-imposed. And it's actually our own self-judgment that's keeping us small. And the great thing about that is that we have the power to transform that and change that. But the negative part about that is that it can feel really hard to move through those patterns. And so that's why I'd like to share with you today what I found has really worked for me. And the reason I'm really passionate about sharing this is because I know that when we let go of that voice that says that we're not good enough, or the shame that we feel about our bodies, or maybe the pressure that we have to be successful, or to be a good mother, or a good lover, or anything. If we're making ourselves wrong, I know that really what's really happening is that we're draining our life force by feeding that voice and feeding that shame. And that really prevents us from really stepping into our feminine power. And when I say feminine power, I suppose what I really mean is it's that ability to really embody love, to really embody that love vibration and to shine that out into the world and really just shine our light without any apologies. And I'm just so excited to think about what would happen if all the women in the world did that. If we let go of the shame story and chose to just absolutely, completely accept ourselves as we are. I'm so excited about that. And so that actually brings me to actually the first point, the first key. And the first key is to, wait for it, I've got a fancy prop. Know your why. Okay, so the truth of the matter is that it's actually not that easy to get past our shame. You probably know that already. So it helps really to have like a larger context as to why we do this work. And so for me, my larger context, what really excites me is that is imagining, like knowing what it would be, like how we could change the world, how we do change the world through really showing up for ourselves, and accepting ourselves as pure beings of love without shame. So that really excites me, and that also really motivates me to do this work, and it makes it feel less personal and less personal, which actually really helps, because shame often feels like extremely personal. And so to actually open it up and realize that by working on ourselves and choosing to love ourselves moment by moment, you are actually really helping all beings everywhere. And if there was any moment that was needed, where feminine energy and feminine power and beauty and love was needed in the world, I would say that that's now. And so that's really my larger reason. And if that one doesn't excite you, I've got another suggestion, and that would be, do it for your sisters and your daughters. Yeah. So a lot of the shame that we have is actually passed on through our maternal lineage. And so what that means is that it's got a lot of weight behind it, that we don't even really need to understand how that works. But a wonderful thing means that we have the power to actually break that chain and to do the work, so that we can not pass down that story to our daughters, and also like model a really a self-loving way of being for the women around us. And so for me, that really motivates me to do the work, knowing that by being self-loving, that I help other women to love themselves is such a great motivator, and that's a really big why for me. And I encourage you to take on that why as well. And there's one more thing that I would really like to suggest, and that is that you really deserve to feel good about who you are. Like, don't you? Yeah, you really do. Like, we all deserve to feel good about who we are. Whereas shame is, telling ourselves that we're wrong for some reason. Yeah, it's just a story ultimately. And coming back to the true deep understanding that we actually really deserve to just stand ashamedly in who we are, really take that on, really understand that. I offer that to you. So once you know what your why is and you're super clear about that, then all you have to do is, well, do the work. And obviously that's quite a thing. And so that's what we're getting onto now. Okay. So on to number 2, take responsibility. Okay, so there's probably a really great reason why you've got a shame story. And I know a lot of shame comes from trauma in early life, and things that have happened to us. And the thing is that it's actually us who keeps the shame alive. And in order to move through it, we actually have to really take responsibility for the way that we keep on perpetrating and keep believing and keep on feeding the shame. So yeah, that really does involve radical self-responsibility, which is quite a practice. It's quite a discipline. And for me, my understanding of how we can really do that is, and what's really worked for me, is to really really explore myself and really understand how I'm shaming myself, so that I can make conscious decisions as to whether I want to keep on feeding that shame, or if I would like to pick a completely different way of being. So a little bit about my story, I would say that I really lived underneath the weight of self-judgment for my whole life, with 25 years of my life without even realizing that that was the case. And when I was about 25, I completely fell in love with meditation. Now, I'd meditated before, but I'd never meditated with wise women who could guide me to meditate in a more feminine way. So what I mean when I say feminine way is that instead of like sitting there and rigidly and trying not to think and thinking that I should be not thinking and actually like giving myself a hard time. Instead, I was guided to sit with my experience and actually soften into it and to open to what is in a gentle, loving, compassionate way. And when I was able to hold that kind of space for myself more and studying myself, and I spent a lot of time in meditation observing what was going on, I realized that I was giving myself a hard time the whole time. You know, like my inner dialogue, it was like a police state in my head, you know, and wow, you know, once I got to actually realize that, I realized it was actually really, really painful. It was like I was living in it was a really painful way to live and a really painful way to relate to myself. And so that was quite a process to do that exploration and to notice that. And it was very, very, very important part of it. And so since then, I've been exploring myself constantly studying myself. It's like I'm rat A and I'm just observing like what I'm doing all the time. I'm with the intention to understand what's really, really going on. And so I encourage you to get fascinated with the workings of your shame. Okay? So it really helps to, like I said before, to make it a little bit less personal. Okay? Because the shame feels, as I said, you know, like, and as you would relate to, it feels like such a personal story. Like, you know, this is the, you know, when you feel ashamed, it's like you're the only person who feels like that. And you're like wrong. You're just so wrong. It's hopeless. It's completely hopeless. And so easily get drawn into that, you know. And when we can step back a little bit and notice what's actually going on there and notice that there's a story playing rather than completely identifying with it, which is very easy to do. And when we do that, that's how the shame stays alive. So instead of, when we learn to not identify so much then and have that kind of perspective, then we can learn about the ways that we're actually feeding the shame and playing out the shame. So, for instance, for me, I began to see that I was creating particular situations in my life simply so that I could feel ashamed about myself. And this has happened in different ways, but I'll give you one example. So one example is that I bought a van that I spent thousands of dollars on it, and it was like straight away, as soon as I took it home from buying it kind of impulsively, because I was in a really bad way and I really needed wheels to get me out of there. But you know, straight away it was, you know, pretty much a dud, you know. And it gave me the opportunity to be like, you're so stupid. God, you're so stupid. Why did you do that? And it just went on and on and on, and I just like, and it kept on, things kept on going wrong with the van. I kept on paying money for it and feeling like, you're so stupid. And actually, then I repeated it again. I bought another van, and the same thing happened again. It was really, really hard time. But the thing was that I began to understand from exploring it and from a more detached perspective, I began to see that I created those situations to show myself what my pattern is, you know, to show myself like what I do to myself. You know, it's like I created a situation so I could see it so clearly what I do, you know. And, you know, I really suffered with that. And, you know, it felt, you know, very hard, but through really observing it and really getting to understand it, I can safely say that I really let go of that story, and I transcended that one. I don't do that one anymore because I really got to know it, I really saw it, and I really chose not to do that anymore. So I really encourage you to ask yourself questions like, how do you keep yourself small and wrapped up in shame? This is the kind of thing that you can journal on later. And just think, what are the stories that I create in my life? And what are the voices saying? Are they saying you're so stupid? Are they saying you've got no willpower? Are they saying that you're a crap mother? Or, you know, what are they saying? You know, just noticing what the voices are rather than letting them just dictate to you without really understanding what's going on. Yeah, so what stories do you tell yourself about what's the judgmental story that you have about yourself? It really helps to imagine that you are like rat A. You know, you're watching and you're seeing what rat A is up to, what all the behaviors of rat A you. Also, what influences you to stay feeling small? Okay, so we're going to get on to some practicals. So as part of number 2, which is taking responsibility, the other part of that is actually taking responsibility for the kind of influences that you choose to have in your life, because we really are affected by the media, we're really affected by the people around us, especially as women, we're really affected by the people around us and their attitudes towards us. And although there's some situations where we don't have too much control and choice about who we get to spend time with, we also have a lot of choice about the kind of influences that we have in our world. Okay, and so I'm going to make a few suggestions to have, so, zero tolerance. Okay, this is a few things that I would personally have zero tolerance policy for. And the first being comparing yourself to anybody. Yeah, so basically it never feels good. It's never a good idea. Also, in reality, you can never see the whole spectrum of what someone's got to deal with. You never see what's going on in their head. You can never see, even if someone appears like they've got it all together in a lot of ways, they've probably got a voice in their head that's telling them they're stupid, you know, and you can't see it, that they're not good enough. And I continually find this because I'm always sharing with women what's really going on, and they're always, you know, because I share in this way, they share with me what's really going on for them, and we've both got our versions of shame, you know, that we're working with. And so it really, yeah, comparing, don't do it. And so even though you know theoretically that you shouldn't do it, once you have more awareness, you'll be able to see, you'll see yourself starting to do it and just be like, no, just stop, no. Just a firm no. Cultivating firm no's is a good thing, okay? From a really loving space in service of, you know, your greater why, like your greater reason why you're doing this work. So comparing yourself, don't do it. Another little hint that I try and keep to myself is that if I'm feeling really vulnerable, don't look at Facebook, and definitely don't start looking at the profiles of the people that you get triggered by, you know? So be vigilant with yourself, noticing where you're creating situations that make you feel even worse about yourself, and then lovingly just say no to that behavior. Okay, can you make that deal for yourself? Yeah. Okay, and shoulds. I would really encourage you to have a zero tolerance on shoulds. Actually, you know, the words that we use are very, very powerful. It's like we're creating our world with our words as well, and we're creating our self-image with our words as well. So if you're saying, yeah, and I should have, and I should, and yeah, like, and you know, and also if you know, shoulds usually go with like your shoulders are a little bit like inwards, and you know, that kind of behavior of yeah, you know, of course that's going to happen sometimes naturally, but you know, watch yourself, and when you see that kind of behavior, you can always switch it around to a could, and notice how that feels in your body. Yeah, I really could have done it in a different way. See if that feels better than, yeah, I should have, you know, like the should really feeds the shame. So really encourage you to let go of the should, unless it's a real should that's actually going to empower you. Yeah. TV and other toxic influences. You probably know what I mean. The kind of TV programs which have an image of what life should look like that doesn't look at anything like your own life, and makes you feel a bit inadequate. Or magazines, or yeah, anything that doesn't actually make you feel better and doesn't empower you, I would really encourage you to just let it go. I mean, it could be some trashy thing that actually makes you feel good for a bit. If that's fine, it's not a problem for you, fine. But really do be discerning, because you do actually, that shame story, it really likes to attach onto things, okay? So be discerning about the influences that you have around you. And that really includes the people in your life, big time, okay? So anyone who does not celebrate you as you are, okay? So I'm going to go more into this later, but wow, if someone doesn't celebrate you as you are, you know, if you have a feeling that that they don't really want the best for you, really let that person go. You know, don't stay in friendship with people who don't empower you and affirm you and love you and nourish you out of obligation. I really give you permission to let go. Just spend less time with that person, stop pursuing the relationship, you know, draw your energy out of any direction where you're not being fed in any way. Yeah, I really encourage you to have the confidence and the discernment to know which situations I mean, and to take those steps of really valuing your inner space and what your true needs are. Okay, so let's get on to the yes. So I really encourage you to say yes to people who own their shit and work on their shit. So what I mean is say yes to people who are also taking responsibility and who are also exploring themselves and in an unashamed, truthful, courageous, loving way. That's super good medicine for you on your path. Okay, so really invite those people in who are also studying themselves and also exploring what's going on, and you can share together. People who are also devoted to embodying love. Yeah, I hope you know what I mean by that. Yeah, I mean the kind of people who you feel held by, and you feel welcomed by, and you feel safe with. Really invite those people into your life. And practices that help you to shine as love and feel like a goddess. So feminine practices, I'm going to go a bit more into that later. They're kind of actual practices that help you to drop the shame, and more than it, although that's part of it, it's also like helping you to feel more alive and more vibrant. And so when you're feeling more, like if you think about it, like when you're feeling really alive and really, you know, maybe you've had a really good dance or something, you know, the shame kind of just goes away. You know, you're so busy feeling alive and in the moment that story doesn't come in at that time. So keep on doing those things that make you feel really alive as a woman. Okay, and can we take a nice deep breath together? Another one. Just letting all that sink in for a moment, and maybe having a little think about the things that you could let go of and the things that you would like to invite in. So, on to key number 3. Create an inner shame-free zone. Yes, so super important. So for me, this was probably the main practice that I used to move past the shame. Learning how to be compassionate with what is really going on for me. So what I did is I spent a lot of time doing this kind of this feminine meditation practice of resting into my body and noticing what comes up. And instead of resisting what comes up, just really noticing and really opening my heart to what I'm really feeling. So what a lot of us do is like we feel shame, and then we put shame on top of the shame. Yeah. And so if you can learn not to put shame on top of the shame, then the shame can just be felt. And if you open your heart to it, it will eventually dissolve. It does work like that. And in the same way that you cultivated the ways that you shame yourself, because you learn how to shame yourself. Yeah, you didn't come out that way. Although it does come through the lineage, still these are also learned behaviors. So yes, you cultivated the more shaming way, you kept that alive, you can also cultivate a more compassionate way of being with yourself. And basically, you can commit to showing up for yourself. And that's the main thing that I've done. I've really committed to be gentle, compassionate and gentle with myself. So what that's looked like for me, and what that continues to look like, because it doesn't just stop, I've definitely found the more I've grown, the more I've had to really kind of take time to hold myself. And so when I say holding myself, what I mean is what I've done, what I do all the time, whenever I need it, is I just rest with my hands on my body, wherever I feel I need to, wherever feels good, often on my belly, often on my womb space, or often on my heart. And I just feel into my body, and I just notice what's arising in my body, and I just allow it. And I just keep on welcoming the sensations. I find that when that happens, that means that whatever's kind of lurking underneath. So like, okay, let me give an example. I might find that I feel a bit irritated, or I notice that something's kind of bothering me on some level, but I actually need to spend time holding space for myself in this way to really get to what's really going on. So I might notice that something's up, and so what I'll do when that happens, and I'll go and just rest with myself. And if I look into myself, I'll usually see like, oh, I'll notice that like the little girl inside of me is like really hurt about something. And so I'll feel that, and sometimes it becomes clear what kind of feeling it is. Like it might be sadness, it might be hopelessness, might be fear, like overwhelm. And basically I'll feel into it, and I'll be like, I actually talk to myself. I'll say, oh, you're feeling really sad, aren't you? And I just, I baby myself basically. And this has been immensely, and it continues to be immensely helpful for myself. Because really, like, a lot of the shame is like unhealed parts of the little girl. Like, she didn't get what she needed back then. She didn't get the understanding and the space that she needed back then. So she's popping up again. And usually she doesn't feel safe, and she doesn't feel like worthy even to be listened to. So if you make the time and space to listen to her and just let her feel what she feels. Yeah. Let her feel what she feels. That's all she needs. Get intimate with your little girl and let her feel what she feels. Yeah. And when you do that, you'll find that it gets that feeling dissipates. Yeah. And for me, it's gone faster and faster. Whereas, I think it took me quite a few years of spending quite a lot of time doing that. And what happened was I actually really did create a shame-free zone inside of myself. Like, some part of me knows that everything's welcome. It's totally okay. I don't put shame on top of the shame. I really welcome what comes up. I create that space to listen to it. And because I do that, now what happens is like, okay, so for instance, 2 days ago, I was going through a process, probably in preparation for this webinar. And the process was like, I feel really like a failure. I fuck everything up. It was like this little piece of my little girl showed up. And that's what she felt. And I didn't really understand until I actually gave myself a bit of time and space to feel it. And I felt into it. I felt into my body, or I felt it in my body. I felt it in my belly. It was like heavy. And then I realized, and I had a sister with me, and I said to her, yeah, I feel, because I was giving it time and space to explore it, I became more clear about what it was. And I realized, wow, yeah, I feel like a failure. And rather than having to understand that, it was very satisfying to put my finger on it. It was like, oh, I feel like a failure right now. And my sister kind of held me, went, oh, and I went, oh, we both went, oh, just felt it, and we breathed together. And boom, 2 minutes later, it's gone. Yeah. So for me, it's become much more efficient. And I found that by babying myself, it's really made space for the woman in me to really find her connection and step into her power. Okay, so I'm going to put that one up again. Get intimate with your little girl and let her feel what she feels, and make time and space to do that. Very important. And I want to say also about that it is a process. It's totally a process. You know, it's a process to create that shame-free zone inside of you. And the other part of creating that shame-free zone is to actually let go of the shame, the energy of shame, and the imprints of shame that are stored inside your energy system. Okay, so it's like shame is very heavy energy, and until we learn to release that out of our body, then it can kind of keep a feeling of heaviness inside of ourselves. And so really as women, actually like the next level of woman, or actually what we need to remember about being women, is that we are channels for life force energy. Okay, and so that means that we actually need to do practices where we're inviting fresh life force in and we're letting go of the old stuff. So this is the kind of stuff that I teach in my rituals, workshops and retreats, and in the meditations. These skills, these feminine transformation practices, which I find so, so, so important. And so it gives me skills to let go of what's heavy inside of me and let go of the old stuff so I can bring in fresh life force energy. And so this is something that we need to be able to just incorporate into our lives naturally. It can really help to have someone guide you with these practices and create a safe and supportive space for you to learn these practices in the beginning. Unless you feel a natural intuition on how to do that, that's great. But otherwise, it's really great to have a guide. So for instance, somebody like me or a woman who's holding women's spaces, just so that you can get a feel of what kind of space needs to be created to hold a supportive energy for this these transformations to happen. Okay, but I will say that like a couple of really simple things is like just shaking your body out. So you can do that now. Like if you notice that you're going into like heavy kind of shame story, if you just like shake your body and just get everything moving, that really helps. And you can just imagine like flicking old energy off into the earth. So that kind of thing that you can do throughout the day. I've gone into like toilet cubicles and just flicked off what's going on, and it's been really helpful. So little practices like that, and then really friendly practices like smiling into your body. And so that's what we've been doing in the Nakedly Unashamed 28-day challenge. We've been doing the body beauty blessing, which is on my website, Wild Sacred Feminine, underneath free stuff. You can download that. And so this is like a Taoist practice that it seems really simple, and it is really simple, but it's so powerful. It's like shining the light of love inside yourself. And it's actually, when you commit to the practice and you get more and more proficient at it, and you keep it up, because all this stuff is a discipline. You don't do these things once and it's done. You know, this is all life practice. Yeah. So once you start shining in the love into yourself, you actually do start transforming your energy. You start transforming your vibration. So yeah, we have a lot of empowering ways also to create a shame-free zone. So one part being babying ourselves and just having compassion, loving compassion for what we feel, just allowing ourselves to feel what we feel, knowing that this will transform things. We don't do it to try and make it go away, but it will transform things. Okay? And the other part, releasing the old energies. Releasing the old energies, both very important parts of creating a shame-free inner zone. So taking a nice deep breath in. Another one. One more. Just feeling into a way, something that just resonated with you and what I just shared, and something you'd like to bring in a little bit more into your life. Perhaps just softening into your body right now a little bit. Okay, so we're on to number 4, key number 4. Create a support paradigm. Yeah, it's so important. Moving through our patterns, as I've said, it's a discipline, it's a life practice, it's a process. And we can't really do it just alone. I don't think so anyway. I haven't been able to do it alone. I mean, do you think I would even be here if I didn't have like a whole troop of amazing sisters who love me and celebrate me and, you know, cheer me on? No, I don't think I would be here if I didn't have that, but I do have that. I've got a whole troop of cheerleaders, and you need cheerleaders too. Everybody needs cheerleaders, and we've got to do this for each other, okay? And we need to make agreements with our friends, either spoken agreements or just non-spoken, to support each other in our evolution, in moving through our patterns, in learning to love each other. We need to affirm each other and cheer each other on and celebrate each other's successes and say, oh, breathe with your sister when she's going through big stuff. It's so important. And the sisterhood is actually really the key for us collectively all stepping up. And so if you don't already have this resource in your life, you need to create it, okay? You need to decide that you're worth that, and then you need to seek it out. You need to make it a non-negotiable to have at least one sister in your life. You have an agreement where you can share everything for each other and be fully there for each other and support each other's process of becoming unashamed. Okay, so, you know, we're at this point where, you know, if you're in a small town, there's no one around you, you don't resonate with the people around you, you can get onto the internet and you can find some kind of forum where you find a sister who has the same need as you. We're at a point where there's no excuse not to have support, okay? You actually have to decide that you're worthy of support, and then you have to be proactive to get those support paradigms in, okay? Those support systems. You've got to install your support systems. That's been a huge thing for me to know that, claim that, create that. And I find that the more I step into sharing myself on a bigger level and being more exposed, I actually I go up to just people around. If I can tell someone around me can hold space, I'll go up and say, can you support me right now? I really need someone right now. Like, I've become very unashamed about asking for support. And life has really supported me in that. And the thing is that I know that I'm worthy of that support. And also I allow people the choice to say yes or no, you know. So if I'm asking someone for some support, I'm understanding that they'll only say yes if they really can, if they've got the time, the space, the energy, the ability, the capacity right then. And if they don't, you know, I will find somebody else. So if I'm going through a freak out, I usually approach 3 different people. I'll just think who can I contact right now, and I will approach a few different people so that at least one of them is able to support me in that moment. And so I really encourage you to install your support system and really think about that in advance, especially as you go more on this journey and you explore yourself more. You really do need more people who can reflect and affirm and love you for who you are. So support paradigm is key number 4. And yeah, that comes to the end of my little session on learning to live shame-free, and I hope that you got some really I hope a few coins dropped there, pennies dropped there, and you got some tips that you could feel like you can resonate with and that you could actually implement into your life. And maybe if you could just think of one or two things and actually be actionable on that, so actually make some steps. So that could possibly look like making a 10-minute time in the morning or in the evening where you just lie down and check in with yourself, breathe with yourself. Yeah, just some time to take some deep breaths in and just check in with what's going on. Anything that's come up that hasn't had space to be processed through yet, making time to process that stuff through and be there for it. Okay, and or maybe you need to install this little voice in you that says like, oh honey, you're doing that thing again, you're doing that comparing thing again, that it's really not good for you, remember that? Things like that. Like, I talk to myself a lot in that way. If I don't have an outward voice to say it, like, I just tell myself. So yeah, I encourage you to do that. It really, really helps. And I just want to remind you also that you could be the one who breaks the chains of shame. Yeah, you could, through the work that you're doing on yourself, moment by moment, by choosing to accept yourself and love yourself and accept, like, moment by moment, that you are actually actively transforming. You're transforming yourself and you're offering to the world. You're transforming your vibration, and it means that you won't, if you resolve these things in yourself, then you won't pass that on to your daughters, and you won't model that for your sisters. I really encourage you to embody love so that you can radiate love to your sisters, to your men, to the world around, because people really need you to be your most shiny, unashamed self. The world really, really needs you. And I hope that through listening to the 4 keys today, that you've realized that you actually had the power to do that. And lastly, what I'd like to leave you with is the message that the revolution, the revolution starts with you. And it starts every single moment. There's another opportunity just to accept yourself the way that you are, and to let go of the shame story and step into your full power as a woman. So that's my deep, deep wish for you, because I know that by doing that, you're offering your greatest gift to the world, and by being full loving presence for ourselves, that we're embodying a full loving presence. We're magnifying that out into the world, and everyone, everywhere, and everything benefits from that. So thank you for all the work that you're doing on yourself, because even being here, I know that you've already started inquiring, and I hope that I've given you some extra little keys that's going to help you to keep on accepting yourself. And so if you would like to know more about me, or if you would like to have more wisdom, feminine wisdom, and resources so that you can do the practices and meditations and things like that, please go to my website, wildsacredfeminine.com, and please sign up for my New Moon newsletter. It's free, and I send that out every month, and it's got a different practice that you can do, and you get a free little ebook if you sign up for that. And yeah, I honor you, sister. I celebrate your journey, and thank you so much for listening and actually hanging on to the end of this webinar, and I hope to be speaking again to you soon. So much love. Mwah.